We don't live in the same America. There's one for white people, and then there's one for us. And theirs, mistakes are lessons. And ours, mistakes are records, right? In theirs, police are protection. In ours, police are presence, right? Two societies built side by side, but only one gets to call itself normal. They tell us to rise through education, but our schools are funded by property taxes. That means your future depends on your zip code, right? You getting me? If your neighborhood is poor, your school is too. That's not a flaw in the system. That is the system. Underfunded schools, over-policed blocks, and a pipeline that starts with suspension and ends in incarceration. But then they say just work hard. But they built the ladder on a tilted floor, right? They set the standards too. Beauty that favors straight hair and pale skin. Professionalism that demands we tuck away our tongues. Articulate speech that means sound white. A smile that hides anger, a tone that reassures. They teach us to bleach not just our hair, but our being, right? That's the real assimilation. The slow trade of self for survival, for acceptance. And every time we perform it, we keep their world spinning. But we can't heal inside of a house built on harm. We can't do that now. We have to start to unlearn. We remove the white man's lens from our reflection, right? We stop treating his comfort as our compass. You feeling me? We stop measuring worth by how well we mimic them. Deconditioning means remembering our natural state before we were taught to doubt it. It's refusing to play by rules written to shrink us. It's choosing to be whole even if it means being seen as too much. Because the truth is, we were never meant to fit into their version of order. We were meant to build our own. A system where rhythm isn't unprofessional, where rage isn't criminal, where our existence isn't exceptional, it's assumed. Deconditioning isn't rejection for the sake of rebellion. It's recovery, right? It's the moment you wake up and realize the problem was never you. It was the world that called your reflection too loud when it was only telling the truth.
You seriously believe the 13% of the population and 50% of the crime? You need to get fact-checked, and I'm about to do it to you. In 2016, white people committed 70% of the convicted crime, and black people only committed 27%. Then in 2017, white people committed 68% of the reported crime, and black people only committed 26% of it. And in 2024, white people committed 53% of the reported crime, while black people only committed 25%. So this narrative on 13% of the population, 50% of the crime is wrong. You know who actually commits 50% of the crime? White people. But guess what stat black people are 13% of the population and 50% in? Exonerations. You know, when they're wrongly convicted. All you're doing by spreading this fake fact is allowing more people to profile and be racist towards black people. You know what's the highest percentage of people who are victims of white people? Black people. And if you look at all the shootings, guess who are the shooters? White dudes. So let's all think long and hard on who actually commits 50% of the crime.
If you can't trust nothing, or you can't trust no one, you could surely trust nature to tell you the truth. When you look out this window, you see the tree and the cloud. The cloud reminds you of cotton, the cotton field, where your ancestors sacrificed, worked hours, long hours, 12 hours, sometimes more, to pave a way for you all, just so you can shit on them. These clouds should be a reminder to you all of what you are fighting for every day.
Hello, brothers and sisters. I'm hoping that you are doing great from whatever you're watching me from. It's a beautiful morning that God has granted unto us, and we are really grateful for life and for everything. God has given us time and for us to think about one of the most important things as human beings. God himself created people. He created human being with his own likeness and image, right? I would like to recognize that and be grateful for everything. But that's something that I want to discuss. The United States has a tendency of grading people by race when they make a mistake. I want to take you back to when Charlie Kirk died. If you can't remember, the same week that Charlie Kirk died, before 2 days before Charlie Kirk died, there was this black person on the subway that, did what they did on the subway, right? And it was the news, and everyone was like, we are declaring war on black Americans because they are getting out of hands. We need to remove them out of the United States because they are bringing chaos. And there was so many backlash that faced black Americans. And everyone was pointing fingers towards black people. And I know that if you can remember the scenario very well, you understand that this is something that happened. Later on, Charlie Kirk came and died. So when Charlie Kirk died, this is what happened. There was so much speculation that has to be a black person, that it is a black person. And everywhere in the social media, on X, these people declared war on black Americans. You could hear how they've planned to raid black houses, to go in black places, and just remove black people outside and pew pew on them. They all planned those things because by default, they understood that what black people did was a mistake. But let's just take a chance and think about crazy things that white people have done. Oh, I've not said that they later on came to find out that it was not a black person who was responsible for Charlie Kirk's death. They came to realize that it was a white person who in fact was a conservative. And so these questions leaves us with a lot to think about, brothers and sisters, because oftentimes when white America makes a mistake, it is always celebrated and it is used as a lesson to learn, and everyone is being excused. I think they are the authors of impunity, brothers and sisters. But when black person does something, it is being amplified, it is being, recorded and being showed in different news outlets. I understand black people do make mistakes, and so white people. But why the disparity on the news trying to show all these people that does this? So please let me know what you think about this video up front before watching it. I'm gonna be back and then I'll be sharing my thoughts in regards to this. For those who are watching it for the first time, I'm just asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to what I can offer you. For those who are always coming back watching my videos, man, I'm grateful for the support that you are giving me. So let's watch the video. I'll be back with my thoughts in regards to this.
Why you are here and what is your purpose? These clouds out there on top of those trees, that reminds you of that cotton, should remind you every day of where you will go, what you will be doing if you all don't get it together. See, the cotton grows on the tree. It takes about 2 years for cotton to revive itself. What you've been seeing in films is your ancestors picking cotton from shrubs and bushes. Now, how is that significant? It's significant because it will show you and tell you how conniving and disgusting these white people are. See, the sun shines in that blue sky. It rises and it sets. White people didn't want to work the cotton field. Not because they couldn't, but because they got a lot of pleasure of watching your ancestors sacrifice their lives, bleed, die, deteriorate. It was all for shits and giggles. The shrubs of cotton that you see was sprayed so that they wouldn't grow into trees. They used a growth regulator, a plant growth regulator, that instead of them waiting 2 years for that cotton tree to grow, they will stay as shrubs so your ancestors could break their fucking backs. So they can break their fucking backs. So they can sweat in the sun. So their hands could prick and bleed from that cotton. They could have waited 2 years. They chose not to. They've been playing this game, manipulating shit, trying to play God and shit. They're unnatural to this world. It was all for shits and giggles what they did to your ancestors. They enjoyed it. They could have waited for that cotton tree to grow. 2 years, that's all it took. They could have just made a little apparatus, a stick, go in that tree, plug them down. They chose not to. They enjoyed their pain. The same way they enjoy your pain now. Going to work every day. Not having time for your children. Not having time for yourself. They enjoy it. Even the diabetes, where you see your grandparents, your mothers, sometimes your kids pricking their fingers, that's a reminder of the cotton field. They enjoy it. You really think it's normal to have these diseases, to have diabetes? How about if I tell you it comes from the cotton field? It comes from those growth regulators that they've been spraying. A lot of these diseases that they say is genetic came from those plant regulating hormones. It sounds crazy, but it's the truth. Because nature doesn't lie. Everything that they are doing to you right now is for shits and giggles. They enjoy it. They could have went out there when the sun went down and did the work. They chose not to. They could have worn some protective clothing and went out there. They chose not to. They got a pleasure out of the pain of your ancestors, as they do today. They get a pleasure when you cry, when you hear your son's been shot in the streets. They get a pleasure out of that shit. And there you are, shitting on your ancestors every day. Because you think it won't be you. It can't be you that's going to go through this. You're going through it now. They just gave you some cheap clothing to put on. Put their names on it. You're no different from your ancestors. That's you right there, working that cotton field, working for that money. That's what it's made of. Hybrid cotton. It's hybrid, not even real cotton. Fake shit. Just so they could laugh at you. So before you say you're not your ancestor, look outside, look up. Look at them clouds. You're in the cotton field.
You know what I think we need to do? We need to start teaching our children the same thing that they are teaching their children. They're teaching their children to white people. They're teaching them how to be from a small age. And our little white children are growing up and going out into this world not prepared, feeling guilty, thinking that there's something wrong with them. And I know that it probably sounds a little out there, but our little one, they need to be prepared what could happen to them in certain situations. These people say they're the ones that live in fear, and they're the ones that are scared, and there's all these sundown towns, and everyone's against them, when we all actually know the truth. And our kids and our family members and just people that are not aware of what's really out there working against us, they need to know. And don't feel bad for going to people that you love and care about and saying, hey, don't go to these big festivals in cities. Don't go where there are large groups of these people. Don't go there, because you don't know what could happen. Because I'll tell you this right now, when I do have grandkids, I'm going to make sure that they don't have an ounce of white. I'm going to make sure that they know that they have done nothing wrong, and not to let anyone in this world convince them that they are less than anyone else due to their...
I think that that's fair. I do. I genuinely think that that's fair, because what we've been witnessing over the last 10, 20, 30 years is there's been so much white guilt, and it absolutely aggravates me when I see that. And one of the reasons why it aggravates me is because when I see all of these people running around with white guilt that has never actually experienced or done anything to anybody else, or they weren't a part of being a slave owner or something like that. When I see these people running around, usually what they do is they just enable bad behavior. And what happens is they start to become overly liberal, because they are looking to be an apologist. They're looking to make other people feel good. And it's so fake, and it's weak, and it's phony. And instead of people being able to take ownership and a responsibility for their circumstance, we just enable other people to continue to hate more.
Now, we often hear about reverse racism now.
There's no such thing as reverse racism.
There's no such thing as reverse racism. You can only be a racist if you have the power to institutionalize what you're doing to people who are different from you. What we're calling reverse racism is natural reaction to being treated unfairly on the basis of somebody else's ignorance. Now, don't ever let anybody say to you or about anyone around you that people don't like that person because of the color of their skin. That isn't the reason white people don't like people of color. They don't like people of color because they don't understand about skin color. And they don't understand that we all are descendants of somebody who looked like your mother. And it's time to change the White House to the President's house. This is ridiculous. To call the place where the President of the United States lives the White House, it sends the wrong message. It says, I remember when Richard Nixon said to a group of reporters, I'm trying to save the White House for you white people. That says it all. And at that moment I thought, well, wait a minute. Now this is something that has to be changed, and it has to be changed. Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. It's time to change the name of the White House to the President's house or the President's residence, which has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Now I'm going to get lots of angry responses to that one. And I understand that. But I'm reading a book right now. Everybody that's watching this has to read this book on tyranny. 20 things that we've learned over the last 100 years in this country that have put us in the position we're in now and what we can do about it. Everybody has to read this book. They should read this book first, and then they should read The Myth of Race by Robert Wald Sussman. And once you've read The Myth of Race, you will never, ever again go along with the idea that there are 3 or 4 or 5 different races. It was a lie made up by the people who ran the Spanish Inquisition. And before that, there were different colors, but race had nothing to do. There was only one race, the human race. We made that whole thing up. It's time to get rid of it. We have the power to do that. This country got ready for World War II in about 6 months. And you're telling me that we can't destroy racism? White people created racism. Anything you create, you can destroy. God created human beings, the human race, and they started out black women. White people created racism. Human beings created racism. It's time to get over it.
Elliot. Today, most urban sectors, especially Milwaukee, remains hyper-segregated. Why is it taking so long, or why doesn't it seem like we can move the button on diversity in neighborhoods?
Because the people who have the power in this country are the people who have the money. And the people who have the money are going to decide where people live. You need to realize that there are more children attending segregated schools in the United States today than there were previous to Brown versus Board of Education. And that's a fact. You need to realize that it is not the intent of white people to let this situation change in favor of anyone but themselves. And right now, white people are really frightened. If you don't understand the destruction of Planned Parenthood offices, and you don't understand the wall that we're going to build on the southern border of the United States, you haven't read the book The Birth Dearth by Ben Wattenberg. Ben Wattenberg was a brilliant Jewish man who was a member of the American Enterprise Institute. And he wrote a book, the first paragraph of which says, the main problem confronting the United States today is there aren't enough white babies being born in this country. He was an advisor to presidents of the United States. He wrote the book in 1987. He says if we don't change this and change it rapidly, white people will lose their numerical majority in this country, and this will no longer be a white man's land. Now, I'm not misrepresenting this. I'm telling you almost exactly what he says. He says there are 3 things we can do to solve this. Number 1, we could pay women to have babies, as they have been doing in Western European nations for years. Then he says, and these are his words, not mine, unfortunately, we would have to pay women of all colors to have babies, so we don't want to do that. He says the second thing we could do is increase the number of legal immigrants that are allowed into this country every year. Then once again he says, unfortunately, the vast majority of those wanting to come to this country today are people of color, so we don't want to do that. The third thing he says, and women had better pay attention to this, 60% of the fetuses that are aborted every year are white. If we could keep that 60% alive, that would solve our birth dearth. Does that sound like racism to you? And if it doesn't, I want to know why it doesn't. If it doesn't, you don't understand what racism is. And I think it does.
Right. A lot of people don't understand the trauma associated with race and racism. Can you talk a little bit about the trauma associated with?
The trauma associated with it?
Yeah.
One of the main traumas It tells white people that they are superior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. And then they find out suddenly that we've got a black president. That's traumatic. That's where their trauma is. Living a lie, finding out the truth, is traumatic. Finding out now, recently, that within 30 years, white people will be in the numerical minority in this country is going to be traumatic. And that's the reason we have to solve this problem, and we have to solve it now. I will ask folks tonight, how many of you black folks want to get even with all white people? And that's what white people are quite certain blacks are going to want to do, is get even with all white people. And nobody will raise their hand. And then I'll say, how many of you want to get even with one or two? Every hand will go up, and you know why, and so do I. White people are scared to death right now, particularly white males. They're scared to death that they are going to lose their power in the future. And they are. But if you want to get ready for the future, if you want to be treated well in the future, treat others well in the present. What we do in the present constructs the future. What we have done in the past, we can learn from that. And we'd better learn from that. Those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. And when you read this book, you'll realize that that's exactly what we're doing. We're repeating the mistakes that we have made in the past because we aren't teaching about these mistakes in the present. We are not teaching history that is true. We aren't teaching social studies that is true. We aren't even teaching true geography, for God's sake.
When we hear, when I hear people say that they're not racist and things like that, and we talk about building racial harmony in this country, I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. Can you predict in the near future or far future when we will ever have racial harmony in this country?
In 30 years, white people will have found out that they have no choice but to get along with those who are different from themselves. I'm not willing, I'd love to wait, but I can't. At my age, I'm not going to be here in 30 years. But we could change this situation if we chose to. During the Second World War, we called the Japanese, and you'll pardon me, but this is what we called them, slant-eyed little yellow We didn't say that about the Germans. After the war, we rebuilt Germany and Japan, and we get along beautifully with the Japanese. That was in 1945 that we finally won that war. How many years ago was that? Figure that out quickly.
I'm not a math person, but...
You're not a math person, but you know it wasn't that far.
Right.
And it didn't take 50 years for us to have peace with the Japanese and the Germans, even though we dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan. The Japanese hadn't killed 10 million people. Nowhere near that. We didn't drop any bombs on Germany, any atomic bombs on Germany. They were a different kind of people. We couldn't afford to do that. We killed how many Japanese people with 2 atomic bombs? And they forgave us. You want to talk about forgiveness? You want to talk about changing this thing? I cannot understand how Japanese people can stand the sight of any of us, and yet they do. I cannot understand why black people who have been subjected to the ugliness that they've been subjected to in this country can get up every morning and go to work among us and not be absolutely furious. And I don't understand why we allow white people to behave the way they do. I don't understand that. And my 3rd graders, after they'd gone through the exercise, couldn't understand it and wouldn't tolerate it. And when they went up to junior high, and a junior high teacher used the N-word, one of my former students said, if you're going to use that word, I'm going to go out in the hall until you stop using it, because we don't use that word in this school. That was a 7th grader who told his teacher off. When we have enough students who are willing to confront people who are making racist, sexist, ageist, homophobic statements, we're going to be better off. We have got to stop tolerating the intolerable. If it's intolerable for my black cousins, and every black person on this earth is one of my cousins, if it's intolerable for them, it's intolerable for me. I will not tolerate it. I will not tolerate it. That is not that. I am required not to tolerate that kind of treatment for the people who are related to me. And that's every person on the face of the earth. If your ignorance is such that you'll mistreat somebody because of your ignorance about the color of their skin, don't do it around me. Number 1, I've been threatened with death lots of times. Now I say, go for it, fool. My husband died 4 years ago. Being with him would not be a bad thing for me. Death is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Living a worthless, useless life is much worse than dying.
In the jungle in Africa, he was white. white man. I saw this white man swinging around Africa with a diaper on, hollering, oh! Do you all see Tarzan over here? Right. Tarzan? And all the Africans, he's beating them up and breaking the lion's jaw. And here's Tarzan talking to the animals, and the Africans been there for centuries, and he can't talk to the animals. Only Tarzan can talk to the animals. I always wonder why. Miss America was always white. All the beautiful brown women in America, beautiful suntans, beautiful shapes, all type complexions, but she always was white. And Miss World was always white. And Miss Universe was always white. And then they got some stuff called White House cigars, White Swan soap, King White soap, White Cloud tissue paper, White Rain hair rinse, White Tornado flow wax. Everything was white. And the angel food cake was the white cake, and the devil food cake was the chocolate cake. I said, Mama, why is everything white? I always wondered, and the president lived in the White House. And Mary had a little lamb, his feet as white as snow, and Snow White. And everything was white. Santa Claus was white. And everything bad was black. The little ugly duckling was the black duck. And the black cat was the bad luck. And if I threaten you, I'm going to blackmail you. I said, Mama, why don't they call it white male? They lied too. I was always curious. And then this is when I knew something was wrong.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome and welcome back to the channel. We are going to deconstruct, not deconstruct, but to dissect these phenomena. Why is it that when white America or a white person does something big like a mistake, it is usually being brushed off? But when it's a black person, business is not the same. It is not business as usual. There is so much resentment that comes from black people. Look at this. Right now, they want black people to go to the protests, right? But look, do you think that's not a way of initiating the martial laws? Because honestly, that's what I think it's happening. And so you can see white people are just protesting, and it's normal, it's business as usual. But let them see a black person on the street. That's when you are going to learn that black people have always been the target. They have always been targeted, whether you agree with this or not. You can see how the news outlets, how the media shows the image of black people, or how it shows the image of white people. Let's say the same mistake has been done. You'll agree with me that the perception is usually totally different, brothers and sisters. And so this leads us to a discussion that I want to dissect. And first, I'm going to be talking about historical construction of white innocence. From the beginning of America's founding, whiteness was constructed as the standard of humanity, morality, and intelligence. And this cultural framing positioned white people as inherently good, well-intentioned, and deserving of grace. Because of this, when white individuals make mistakes, even serious ones, society tends to interpret them as accidents, as misunderstandings, or temporary lapses. The benefit of doubt is by default when it comes to white people. This historical ideology, comes from slavery. It comes from settler colonialism. It comes from what we call racial hierarchy. Because this still shapes how institutions and media evaluate every wrongdoing based on race. So you understand the perception of the media and how they push all this information, right? There's a social order. There's a social pattern going on. As a student of literature, African American literature, and sociology, there is a concept called black criminalization as part of white social order. Let me discuss it with you. Black people, on the other hand, you understand that they were historically cast as dangerous, inferior, criminal, and disorderly. during the times of slavery, back to the times of Jim Crow. You get how all this came to happen. To the war on drugs, the United States built systems where black behavior was surveilled and punished as a means of social control. Black mistakes were interpreted as evidence of inherent moral failure, justifying harsh punishments. This criminalization became part of American social identity. Black people had to prove their innocence every damn time. White people were assumed innocent. Right? And that's how it came with the construction of white innocence. Institutions like schools to courts to policing continued to treat black missteps as threats to society rather than human mistakes. And if you want to understand that this is something that didn't just started yesterday, look at during the times of Jim Crow. Look at the roles of police. There was so many over policing in the black community in the name of war on drugs. Yet they're the same people that pushed all these cracks in the black community. Right? And so think about it. This is something that is happening in real time. And you ask yourself, why is it that when a black person does something, there is always a magnification of the problem? Because it happens most of the time, right? I'm also going to be discussing with you the media's role in celebrating versus condemning. American media, you understand that it plays a central role in reinforcing this type of divide. When white individuals, commit harmful actions, headlines typically humanizes them, emphasizing about mental health, troubled pasts, and positive qualities. In contrast, when black individuals make mistakes, media highlights their mugshots, criminal records, and alleged shortcomings even before they are proven guilty. This narrative shapes public perception. White wrongdoing is an exemption. Black wrongdoing is a confirmation of stereotype. And over time, these narratives normalize sympathy for white offenders and collective condemnation for black people, brothers and sisters. Another concept that I want to talk about still in the same line is institutional bias and unequal consequences. The legal and education system carry forward the historic bias. And this is how it does. You see, white students or workers who make mistakes are more likely to receive counseling, warnings, or second chances. Does that happen the same with black students or black workers? No, because first they'll receive suspension. If they're workers, they'll receive job losses. They'll even go to prison, worst case scenario. Receive far harsher punishment when committed by black people. Additionally, white political or business figures who commit wrongdoings often return to positions of power. Black leaders are permanently tarnished. The difference is not the mistakes, it is how society chooses to respond. Also another concept and something so much important. These mistakes, they are currency to white people, and I'm going to be explaining to you. White mistakes often became part of redemption narrative, stories of resilience, stories of growth, stories of transformation, right? A white politician or celebrity can commit fraud, violence, or even extreme wrongdoing and later be celebrated. That's what they call overcoming adversity. The mistakes becomes an asset that deepens their story. Black people, however, are rarely allowed redemption. Their missteps become lifelong stigma. Even after serving time or apologizing, society continues to define them by the moment. And this explains why white individuals with criminal records can still rise socially or politically, while black individuals remains to be trapped by recorded error. So I really don't know what to think about this. We could talk and talk and talk and talk about this. But honestly, I really want to know what you think and feel about this video. At the end of the day, I'm your host and presenter Jidok Stories. I'm hoping to see you on my next video. But until then, peace, love, and harmony. Salute.